Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I am starting a weekend reading vlog. So today is Friday, January 15th, and I'm checking in the morning, but this afternoon I plan to start reading. I have a couple things to handle before that. I really want to read a lot this weekend because I have a lot of books on my plate right now. And I love the idea of something like a 24 in 48. I'm going to spend more like 2.5 days rather than just 2 days. And I doubt I will get up to 24 hours read, but I love the idea of pushing and trying to get as much read as possible in a weekend. I was inspired to do this because some booktubers that I love, Kazen at Always Doing and Laura at BookBubbler, who I will link below, just did one last weekend, and I thought that was such a great idea. I have done some before, and really I fail every time I don't read enough, but I want to try. I think it's going to be fun, and I have a lot to read. So let me tell you about what I am going to be reading this weekend. I have a couple of books which are sort of must-reads, and then I have an entirely huge list of other books that I would just love to pick up, any of them. So I'm going to allow you into the world that is me and my reading and show you exactly how many books I kind of have on my mental radar of what I might pick up at a single time and how many I'm actually concurrently reading, because it's kind of a lot. So if you get stressed out by a lot of books, sorry. So first, let me start with the books that I am buddy reading. Since January, I don't do a monthly priority. I had scheduled quite a few buddy reads this month, and they're books that I'm so excited about, and I'm so happy to be reading with my buddies. But it's a lot because I have 4 of them this week. So I need to make progress. Some of them are wrapping up and some of them are getting started. So let's start with the most urgent one, which is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, which I'm buddy reading with Kazen at Always Doing and Cynthia at BookWhimsy. We have already checked in twice for this. We're halfway through, and I just need to get to the 75% mark by this afternoon for our next check-in, which I have not started yet, but the book is so good so far. We're having such good discussions. There is a lot to talk about, especially related to the way that women are treated and uneven dynamics, but power dynamics between couples, and it's just super great. So I'm definitely excited about that, and that's the first thing I'll start reading. Next is Kim Jiyoung, born 1982, by Nam-Joo, which I'm buddy reading with Freddie at Sluggish Reader. This is a very short book, but wow, it is so good so far. We checked in earlier this week at around like the 20% mark, and our conversation was so good. I love everything that's going on. I love everything that this book is saying. So I'm super excited. He actually has already finished the book, so I need to get a hop on it and get through the rest of the chapters. Luckily, it is short and it is so good. I've been thinking about it since what I read earlier in the week. Then I've got Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wang, which I'm buddy reading with Tori at Tori Morrow, who's amazing, and we're checking in this weekend. So I have not yet started it, but I need to read something like 200 pages before we check in. So that's going to be the next kind of priority there. And the last one that I am buddy reading is Prince of Ayodhya by Ashok K. Banker, which I'm buddy reading with Ashley at Don't Have a Degree in Reading. This is so cool. This is a retelling of the Ramayana. So this is the first book in a, I think, 8-book series that is retelling the Ramayana, which is a classic Indian epic. And we've checked in once so far, and I need to read like another 25% so that we can check in on Monday. So I have a little bit of time. It's so fascinating so far, just the mythology and like the discussions that we're having. It is a retelling of a classic epic, and the author has done it in a very modern epic fantasy style, but has kept a lot of the content that was in the original epic. When I told Sush, my husband, that we were reading the Ramayana, he said, wow, that's got a lot of problematic content, and he is not kidding. There's definitely some issues, and it's a fascinating discussion that we're having about the choices that the author made of what to stay true to in the original material, even if it's problematic, and kind of how that balances out. So that's been really interesting. So those are all of the books that I'm buddy reading. They are my top priorities. I do have 2 other books that Sush and I are reading out loud to each other. So I am reading out loud to him The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nhi Vo, which we're about 30% through. This is a reread for me. I had read it back when it first came out and loved it. So I wanted to read it out loud to Sush, which we finally started, but we just need to kind of keep going and continue. It's a novella. It's very short. So if we could just find time, I think it'll be so good. And then he's about to start reading out loud to me The Stone Wētā by Octavia Cade. This is something that Rachel at Kalanadi did a review for, I believe, so I'll link that below. And it just sounded really good. So that's the next one that he's going to read out loud to me, also a novella. So hopefully we'll get some of that read, probably while doing cooking or something this weekend. Okay. Now we move on to the long list of other books that are on my radar that I have checked out from the library or that I own that I would really, really love to get to. The list is incredibly long, so I'm going to just go super quickly through them and show you what it's like to live in my head. So the first one is an ebook from my library, and that is Learned Optimism by Martin Seligman. This is a self-help book that is kind of about how to be more optimistic. And this is a book that I had started last year, got 60% through, and I have rechecked out maybe 5 times, and I just keep not getting to it. And it's just 40% left, so I want to get to it pretty highly. Then I've got a couple of other high priority ones, starting with this, which is a huge anthology, but actually it's just one story in this anthology that I'm trying to get to, which is a novella, The Citadel of Weeping Pearls by Aliette de Bedard, which Rachel Kalanadi read recently, and I've read other things set in that universe, the Shuya universe. So I really want to get to that. I think I would love it. Also, Latinx by a couple of different editors, which is part of the Breakbeat Poets collection. I love other works in the Breakbeat Poets line, and I've heard really good things about this from Priscilla at Bookie Charm. So I actually started it. I read a couple poems. It's good so far. I want to keep going. Then I've got The Grimoire of Kensington Market by Lauren B. Davis. This is something that I heard about from Andreea at Infinite Text. It's a Snow Queen retelling in modern day Toronto. So good. I've checked this out like 4 times from the library. Keep not getting to it, but I really want to. I've got 9 Bar Blues by Cherie R. Thomas. I think I heard about this from ONYX Pages. It is a short story collection of kind of dark fantasy, horror, sci-fi. Then I have a series by Tim Tingle, How I Became a Ghost, and When a Ghost Talks, Listen. This is middle grade. I think maybe historical fiction. It's about a ghost from the Trail of Tears of a little boy. I think I heard about this from Melitta at the Midnight Librarian. I'll link her below. And then I've got Miss Meteor by Taylor K. Mejia and Anna Marie McLemore. Heard great things about this from Adri at Perpetual Pages and Cynthia at BookWhimsy. I think there's reviews, so I'll link those below if I can find them. But this sounds super sweet. And then I have a couple of books that are by the publisher Levine Carrito, which did Elatsoe by Darcy Little Badger, illustrated by Rovina Kai, and did Lupe Wang Won't Dance by Donna Barbara Higuera, and I love what this publisher is doing. Such a great publisher. So I have a couple of things that I don't even know what they're about. I just got them because I want to read everything that publisher does. They do a lot of translated work as well as work by marginalized authors, all for children. So middle grade, picture books, and YA. So the first is The Blue Wings by Jeff Ertz. Next is Little Fox by Edward Van de Vendel and Marije Tolman. And the last is the big question book of Sex and Consent by Donna Friedis. So all of those look really good to me. Then I have some owned books. So I have A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purnell. This was a gift to me 2 Christmases ago. I actually started this in October for the Disability Readathon. I just read the intro, and it's been sitting at my bedside waiting for me to continue. I really want to. I also have Down and Out by J. Andrew Briseño. Andy is a good friend of mine that I grew up with, and he published this a year and a half ago, and I just really want to read it. I also have Telling the Bees by Mark Norman. This is a book that Andreea at Infinite Text gave me for Christmas. I want to read this so much. It just sounds lovely. It's all about folklore and customs relating to bees. I just want to read this so bad. I also have Ripples by Shi Li Kao, which is a short story collection. This is written by the author of The Sum of Our Follies, which I read earlier I forget which month, but I read it earlier this year. I loved it so much. And Freddie at Sluggish Reader has an entire review for that one, so I'll link it below. I love that book so much that I ordered it, but I had to order it from Malaysia, from the publisher. And since shipping was so expensive, I was like, let me just buy her short story collection as well, because I really want to read that, and it's not easy to get your hands on. And then, lastly, I have Look Both Ways by Jason Reynolds. Sush gave me this for Christmas. It is middle grade. It's by Jason Reynolds. I just know I'm going to love it. He actually read this right after giving it to me, and he said it was excellent. So I really want to read it. Okay, so those are my plans for the weekend. I have the 4 buddy reads, which is my main goal. And then any of these other books I might end up picking up. I kind of just want to read all of them. So we'll see what I get through. Okay, so it's now 7 p.m. on Friday night, and I just wanted to do a quick check-in. I got about 2.5 hours read this afternoon of Rebecca, and that was about 130 pages, and it is a very gripping read. I just had a chat with Cynthia and Kazen about it, and we had so much to say. There were a number of things that happened in this section that we read. We're up to about the 75% mark now that I was not okay with. Oh, I got so infuriated by some of the things that happened, and it was so fun to discuss it with Kazen and Cynthia and get their thoughts. They definitely have like different perspectives from me in certain areas, and so it was really cool just to hear like what each of us thought about what was going on and what might happen and how to interpret things. And it's just so fun, especially because there's a lot of, I think, certain things that have symbolism in this book, and unpacking that together where each person sees a little different facet of it was really cool. So we shall see where the rest of this goes. We've got another 25%, and I'm really hoping that some things turn around and do some other actions, but we shall see. Right now, though, I'm just very angry at some of the characters. So I will see if I can get a little bit more reading done tonight, hopefully of Kim Jiyoung, and I'll check in with you guys probably tomorrow morning. Good morning, everyone. It is now Saturday, January 16th at about 9:30 a.m. and I'm about to get started reading again, but I wanted to update you quickly on what I got read last night and what my plan is for today. So last night I did get more reading done. So I read about an hour and a half of Kim Jiyoung, and I got maybe 60 pages read. I was taking a ton of notes while I was going because there's a lot in there that's really interesting. And luckily I got to chat with Freddie at the end of that and just check in and talk about some of what was going on in the story. I'm really enjoying it so far. It is something that is really just commentary on the sort of systemic gender imbalances and inequities in Korea, but so much of it is relevant from also like an American perspective because it's just powerful the way that the story is talking about what women go through. It reminds me so much of Not That Bad, edited by Roxane Gay, which is all of these essays by different women talking about rape culture in the US and how a lot of that is just due to really structural power imbalances and that being reinforced through the way that people interact with people's bodies. And I'm seeing that so much in Kim Jiyoung as well. And sometimes it's infuriating when you read about it and you're just like, oh, it's so unfair. But I'm really enjoying the story so far. I like it a lot. I have maybe another 30% to go in that book, and I'll try to get that done later today. The other thing that I read last night was I got started on the Citadel of Weeping Pearls, and I'm going to go ahead and keep reading that today. So I have this the collection that it is in. So I read for about half an hour in that last night, and I got about 40 pages read of 40 pages equivalent of what the book would be if it weren't in this huge thing, because this has enormous pages. So I'm just counting it based on the pages of the actual novella. Anyway, so I got started on that, and it is super engaging. I really like Aliette de Bodard's Shuya universe and the way that she has created this really, really cool, elaborate sci-fi universe. I'm so into it. I've read, a couple other stories in this universe, and this one is starting out very interestingly. I like the way that she does mystery. So I'm super into that, and I want to finish it this morning, because it is due back at the library today. And yeah, I need to finish it really soon because Soshi's going to go run errands in a bit and take that for me. So I need to get it done. Other than that today, my other priorities are I do want to finish Kim Jiyoung, and I want to read my section of sort of Kaigen, which I am buddy reading with Tori at Tori Morrow. So I have about 200 pages of that to read. So that'll take up, I think, a good chunk of the afternoon. And then we'll see. We'll see if I have more reading time left in me or if I get kind of tired from it. I'm hoping that I might have more time, in which case I might pick up one of my other library books that I have checked out. So I will check in with you guys later on today and let you know how it's going. Hey guys, so I wanted to check in again. It is now 11:30 a.m. and I just finished The Citadel of Weeping Pearls, and it was so good. So I read for another hour and a half or so, and I finished 125 pages, which was the rest of the book, and it was so good. This novella is just everything that I was looking for, and it just makes me want to read so many more of the short stories and novellas that Aliette de Bodard has in her Shuya universe, because it was just awesome. So I've read a couple of other things that she has in this universe, and some of them have been great, and some of them have been pretty good, but this one was just outstanding. Definitely my favorite so far. I think that part of it is that I've gotten a little bit more familiar with her universe and her writing style, and so I was able to just kind of drop into it and be thoroughly engaged from the get-go. So her Shuya universe is basically like a Vietnamese-inspired space universe that has big empires and lots of culture that is related to Vietnamese heritage, and things like lots of scrolls of poetry and court intrigue and beautiful jewelry and gorgeous robes and all of these sorts of things, but tons of tech, robots and mind ships, which are these kind of living beings, kind of human brains almost inside of ships, and just so much tech, but also very fantastical in some senses. They have this idea of deep space where time kind of warps, and it's just so cool. I love the universe, and her writing is just great in this. It's all about political intrigue. In this, the basic premise is that there is an empress whose daughter was somebody who controlled the Citadel of Weeping Pearls, but who kind of was doing some cutting edge, very interesting but risky science, and was banished sort of 30 years prior, and the whole Citadel disappeared. But now there's a threat to the Empire, and the Empress is trying to find that Citadel again, and we follow many different people who are involved in this sort of search, and it's just so cool. I loved all of the different perspectives. Anyway, so I thoroughly enjoyed this. So much political intrigue, so much great sci-fi, such great characters, really epic space opera feel. So good. So I definitely loved this. I want to read more in her Shuya universe, and it's a great feeling to have finished something so far in my vlog. So I will check in with you later on today as I read more things. So it is now 4:45 p.m. on Saturday, and I wanted to do another quick check-in. After I checked in last, I handled some chores, had some lunch, and then while I was doing another chore, Sush read out loud to me for about a half hour from The Stone Wētā by Octavia Cade, and it is so good. We only got 11 pages in. It was just a half hour of reading, but we are so hooked. It's basically this novella about a group of scientists who have this secret network for storing and passing on data about kind of climate change and ecological issues that governments want to kind of hide and obfuscate, but they have this network where they're trying to keep the data and preserve the real numbers. And it's so cool. They all have like secret names, code names that are based on certain animals or plants that are where they are located and that have something to do with the spirit of resistance. It is amazing. I'm so into it so far. We're not that far. I think that's about 8%. So really looking forward to continuing with that. Then I got back to reading Kim Jiyoung and I finished it. It was so good too. I loved this book. So I finished the book about a little over an hour of reading and about 80 pages, and it was just awesome. I loved especially the way that it ended. I loved everything that it had to say about Jiyoung's life as an adult and as she was married and became a mother, and just the really biting commentary that this book has against the structures of the patriarchy, really, and how deeply embedded that is, such that even when there is change, it's often not enough, and women get so trapped into all of these situations where there is no right choice. They can't ever make a right choice, and people don't even see that. And oh, it's just so good. I absolutely loved this. And I have to think about it more. I still need to check in with Freddie, but I really loved how this ended especially. So I'm gonna go and we're gonna have snack and like do some other stuff. Hopefully this evening I will also get some of sort of Kaigen read. That is kind of next on my list. So I will maybe check in with you later tonight or maybe check in tomorrow morning. Good morning, everyone. It is now Sunday at about noon, and I wanted to check in, catch you up on what I did last night and this morning. So last night, I think the last check-in I did was after I finished Kim Jiyoung, which I am still so impressed by. And then I got a little bit more read in the evening. So Sush read to me for another half hour from the Stone Wētā. We got maybe 11 more pages in. It was so good. I am really into that book right now. I love the way that the story is unfolding. I love the sort of way that each chapter is handled, where it starts with a little bit of info about the different animals and plants that the scientists are taking their code names from, and each of the scientists and the way that they view things and the way that they're trying to handle the protection of data is fascinating. So very much into that. And then I also read about an hour and a half, a little over an hour and a half of sort of Kaigen. I got about 80 pages in. And this morning I actually checked in really briefly with Tori. We're trying to check in later on today once we get to the 33% mark, so a third through the book. So still have a bit to go, but I checked in briefly with her, and it's fascinating because this is a book that I've heard a lot of really amazing things about. So many booktubers that I just adore have loved this book. So I was really excited going into this, and then I started reading and I got less and less and less into it. I was not having fun with this book. But Tori, on the other hand, is loving it. And so it was such a cool conversation to kind of see the aspects that were working for me and not working for me, and the aspects that were kind of working and not working for her. And I think it's so fascinating to have that discussion and sometimes open your eyes to other ways of looking at things. I think that there's this effect called the halo effect, where if you see something good, then you kind of think everything else is good. Or if you see something bad, then you kind of think everything else is bad. And I think I was getting a little bit frustrated with some of the things going on in the book and just sort of being a little harsher than I should have. But talking to Tori, it made me really excited to keep going. And I also checked in with Ashley at Don't Have a Degree in Reading, because she had read this book and loved it. And I was like, hey, was this a slow start for you? Because I'm struggling. And she told me to like hold on at something like the 25 or 30% mark, it gets better. Like as in it gets really engaging. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep going and keep trying. Excited after talking to Tori. Basically, the issues that I'm having so far with the book is that I love some of the themes that it has, and the characters are really complex, and that's all very interesting, but there's a lot of info dumping, like a lot in the first couple of sections, like so much that my eyes were glazing over in certain parts. I'm just not a fan of info dumping. I'm much more cool with just being thrown into the middle of things, not knowing what's going on, than I am with being told in an info dump all of the background and details. So that was hard for me. But Tori was like so into the history and like learning about this world and everything like that. So that's very much a personal style thing. And then the other things that I found were the characters are very kind of like Mary Sue, that idea of they're just good at everything, you know, and it's not that they're not flawed people. Like I think personality wise, very flawed, but in terms of kind of skills and power, really just like the best of the best that anybody has seen in generations, so much potential, all that sort of stuff. And it reminds me a little bit of anime. And I wonder too if that's kind of like it's doing some calls to that. This is one of those books that is kind of some sort of water bending is what is used as the form of magic. And it's a very interesting world in that it's sort of a samurai style Japanese influenced world, except that also it's modern. Like there's computers and video games and TVs and planes and all these sorts of things. So it's a very interesting world in that sense of the mixture. But yeah, that kind of Mary Sue thing of like they're just so amazingly good and so powerful, and just that's a little bit much for me. And then there's a couple of things that are a little too convenient. Like it's just one of those, there's a problem that's introduced, and then surprisingly a couple of hours later it's solved because of a very unexpected thing that happens, and it's just that was a little too convenient for me. And then the other thing I'm struggling with is that one of the main characters is this teenage boy, Mamoru, and he is kind of, at least in the beginning of this, a very difficult character for me to like. He's kind of a bully. He reminds me a little bit of Draco Malfoy in that he thinks he's so special and so excellent because of his family lineage and because of his powers and all of that sort of thing. But he's one of our main protagonists, and it's very hard for me to like getting the viewpoint of a bully. However, Tori was really pointing this out, that there's gonna be a growth arc for this kid. There's gonna be a lot that happens, and he's gonna have a lot of growing. And we can see already in the beginning chapters that his worldview is getting a little shaken. And his mother, Misaki, is a fascinating character as well, especially what's just kind of happened to her with her life and her marriage. So there's a lot to be excited about for this, and I'm really glad that I am buddy reading this with Tori and like getting her differing views and all of that sort of stuff. So my goals for today, I'm going to read for maybe a half hour before lunch, and then after lunch, I have a lot to read. I need to read another like 20% in sort of Kaigen, so that's probably like 150 pages, something like that. And then I need to finish Rebecca because we're finishing that and checking in tomorrow, and that's probably like another 100 and something pages. And then I need to read another 100 and something pages, maybe 150, of Prince of Ayodhya, which I am buddy reading with Ashley at Don't Have a Degree in Reading. So I have a lot to get read today. I've been doing okay so far this weekend and actually getting a fair chunk of reading in, so I'm really, really hopeful. I don't know that I'll get to any other books today, which is sad. I have so many that I want to read, but all of these are really really cool things to read, and I'm very glad that I am buddy reading them, and I want to like keep up with all of that. So and the other thing is, and I probably inserted some clips, what I spent my morning on was BookTube content. So I usually record my weekly wrap-ups on Sunday morning because I count my weeks as ending on Saturday night. So I recorded that and edited that. It's uploading now. Usually I record a couple of other videos too, but I'm going to try to sneak those in later this week because I got a lot to read today. So that is my plan. I will check in with you later as I get more things read. Okay guys, so it is about 10:15 p.m. on Sunday night now, so I want to go ahead and wrap up this reading vlog. Let me catch you up on what I've done the rest of today. So last I checked in with you was just before lunch. I got in another maybe 20 minutes of reading sort of Kaigen before lunch, maybe just 15 pages. And then we had lunch, which was great, and watched some BookTube. And then I got distracted by all of the stuff around the house. So handling chores for a bit, and then also cooking. So often on Sundays, Sush and I will cook up a big batch of something that we can then have a ton of leftovers to freeze. So today we baked some bread and we made a new recipe, a kind of lemony lentil dish that was quite good. I really enjoyed it. But it took so much longer than I thought it was going to take. I just am slow at chopping. However, it was really nice because Sush usually reads to me while we cook. Often I'm just a much faster person at chopping and getting stuff done than he is. And I really like him reading to me. So he read more to me of the Stone Wētā. We actually got in about 2 hours of reading that, and it was so good. I mean, only like 35 pages because, you know, reading out loud, it's slow, and there's a lot of discussion. We had so many different discussions, and it was really interesting, just all of the different things that this book is making us think of. It's kind of like spy espionage thriller type of thing, but it's all about ecologists and doing climate data, I don't know, espionage, where they're trying to hide the data so that they can keep the true numbers there and not let their governments fudge them. It's just so cool. It's so cool. I really, really like this. I can't wait to keep reading it with him. I think we're maybe at like the 45% mark now, and just absolutely loving it. So he read to me for quite a while we cooked, and then we kind of set the food aside and had a little bit of other reading before dinner, and then after dinner I read some more. So I did get in some reading. So basically I got in 2 hours and 45 minutes of Rebecca, and I finished that. So that was awesome. I was able to actually finish the book that I have to check in tomorrow with Cynthia and Kazen on. And this is interesting. So last I checked in about Rebecca, I was struggling with it because it is something where something happened and I really didn't like what that said. And that continued through till the end. And I just was so unhappy with what the book was doing. And then I read the afterword. And the afterword made me reframe how I was considering what the book was saying in such a way that I thought it was really interesting. And now I am not sure what to think. And I cannot wait to discuss it with Cynthia and Kazen and like see what they think, because I have no idea what I want to rate this. I have no idea how I feel about this. It's just, that was a really good afterword. So I definitely I will hopefully by the time I actually do a weekly wrap up where I talk about Rebecca, I'll have my thoughts in order. But right now, all I can say is, it was just like, such an interesting shift of my perception of what the story was doing. And I mean, it was super readable, like really, really readable to get through the end. So that was great. Oh, and I had chosen to read Rebecca because after spending all afternoon cooking and everything, I checked in with Tori and asked if we could just check in later this week. And she was like, sure, because we already checked in this morning. So I got Rebecca read. That's awesome. Then the other thing that I did was for about an hour, I read Prince of Ayodhya, which I'm also checking in tomorrow with Ashley. I don't have a degree in reading. And I got through about 50 pages. So I have another 100 to go on that one. But hopefully I can get that done kind of earlier in the day before we check in. And that one is just this big, Indian epic. And it's got all of that. It reminds me a lot of, I haven't seen a ton of Indian TV shows and movies that represent some of these classical epic characters, but I've seen a little bit and it really reminds me of that. Just over the top fantastical powers and these people who are, these epic heroes and all that sort of stuff. So it's a fun ride. So yeah, I actually got a chunk of reading in this afternoon, this evening, even though I ended up doing kind of a lot of house stuff in the middle. So not as much reading today as I had hoped, but still a chunk. So my total for this weekend, which was basically 2.5 days, is 16 hours and 6 minutes and 690 pages. So definitely not the 24 hours that I was kind of like aiming for, if not expecting I would reach, but more than I thought I would get, truthfully. The last time I did 72-hour kind of reading weekend, I only got 12 hours read, so 16 is pretty good. I didn't get all of the things read for buddy reading that I was meant to, but I still got a lot of great things read, so I can't feel sad about it. And I'm really glad that I did this vlog because it just kind of kept me motivated while I was trying to get through all of these. So I'm sure this is going to be a long vlog. I can't do short vlogs for some reason. But if you guys have read any of these books, if you have any thoughts, if you have any comments or any thoughts about the books that I mentioned that I want to read that I just haven't gotten around to yet, anything at all, go ahead and leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you.